Good morning, everyone. Okay. So the big question, is this possibly the turn where we see more than a down day here? So yesterday there was some selling. The markets couldn't hold on to their gains. You can see the topping tail there. There was the initial gap down, and then the Fed chair talking, big move up, and that kind of petered out there, but no real damage done. It's just, is it the start of a possible, what would be initially a normal pullback within this upward move? Good morning, Fabio. You see it's moving up. It's at resistance. We've covered the market internals, and now, we've got potentially the first weekly red bar. Just a little narrow range bar so far. No big deal, but it is at resistance. On the bullish side, it's a 100% retracement. So obviously a show of strength here. It hasn't been able to break a prior weekly low now. 8 weeks, if it doesn't do it now, and that would be a little bit of a ways down, that'll make 9 weeks. But let's assume that we end with a narrow range week like this, it's going to be pretty easy to break below a prior weekly low. And the next step will be, does it close below that low? And then if it does do that, well, down here, that certainly opens up the door to hitting the 20 MA, the 200 is there. So step-by-step process of, okay, upward trend, a red bar. What's the location of that red bar? You look to the left, it's at resistance. Do internals. Do they match up with the potential for a bearish turn? They do. Does it break below and close below a prior weekly bar or daily bar? Yes, it did. What happens today? Well, here's the next support. This shouldn't be much of anything, but it's grinding down on the hourly now. We got some significant support down here intraday at 276.50-ish. I've got 42. Let's just say at 50. Probably more likely to be the stopping point. And then we've got, this unfilled gap down here. And as I said, the confluence of these moving averages. So any pullback into this area, I suspect buyers will step up again and give it a try. So we'll see what the reaction is here. Just like we see what the reaction is here. Momentum stalled, and we'll see how much of a correction can get going. And Qs were actually able to close above their opening price. And I think it was a positive close marginally. Something's very, very small, insignificant. Nonetheless, a green bar within an upward move. Buyers came into the unfilled gap above the 200. It's at resistance or just slightly above. So everything's still intact bullishly. We'll see. If it follows through lower, does it go sideways? Maybe it's up to new highs. The trend is up, as I say, until it's not. Now, the Russell pulled back a little bit more. You can see the larger red bar. There was the relative weakness, and it's holding the area of this low right here. So that's something we'll be watching. If any one of these indices could possibly break a prior weekly low, this looks like it could be the one, since that prior week was relatively small. So we'll see. We'll see. Does this break below here today? Buyers have been relentless in stepping up on every little blip to the downside. I mean, look at this chart here of the Russell. Red bar ignored, red bar ignored. Right? This one, a little bit of a follow through, red bar ignored, red bar ignored. So consistent bullish price action. This is the most bearish, and that isn't very bearish as far as a couple of bars, but it's the most bearish in this move higher. So we'll see. The depth of retracement here is a little bit deep, which is right there. We'll see what happens. Transport's relative weakness, that bottoming tail bar didn't follow through. So within an upward trend, we see a little, what I'd call a minor topping tail. It really doesn't meet the definition of a topping tail. That's why I call it minor. But it just, the momentum stalled there, and it looked like it could go higher. And then the buyer stepped up on the dip and it didn't go higher. So there's some distribution going on here, but no real violation of support yet. We're waiting. This as well, narrow range last week could easily violate that prior weekly low. It's making a lower high. And yet again, no matter what we look at, we don't have any significant break of price support yet. So we have to be cautious as far as getting aggressive on the short side. We'll see what today brings as far as that goes. And the Dow, I mean, just narrow bodied bars, narrow range bars, grinding higher and pushing up into this resistance area, maybe the first red bar. And could this break to new all-time highs? It certainly could. And, you know, as far as a trap, what would be better than the Dow to make new all-time highs and then trap the majority long at that time? So I don't know if that'll happen, but historically I've seen it happen quite often, and we'll see what happens as this follows through. Our trend analysis of various markets and sectors and so on, it's a step-by-step process of following bar by bar, swing highs and lows, levels of retracement, and, you know, looking at relative strength and weakness. And it's just a process, you know, that it brings us to a point of saying, hey, initially we could say this is in an area of resistance. Maybe this move without any correction has been ridiculous so far, but nonetheless, it's not breaking down. No, our internal support, a correction now, and we'll see if that actually happens. Futures, taking a peek, just really nothing much here. Just a little downward move, not a big deal. Really not a big deal of anything going on here. Sideways. You know, you do have a topping tail with a break to a new high, so a little bit of a concern. It's just one bar. Bonds, a little down here. We talked yesterday, trading range for a couple of weeks. Nothing to do here, but, you know, there is some selling here, and so we'll see. Gold, flat, nothing going on. Oil retracing back up within a small range, so nothing going on there. This bar obviously is live. It's a weekly bar. It was red yesterday pre-market. Now it's a bottoming tail bar. If this closes with a bottoming tail bar, it suggests oil is going to go up. So we're interested to see where this actually closes here. Because if it's a bottoming tail bar, then, you know, the energy sector, which is the daily is consolidating here, could start moving higher. And what's underperformed may start to outperform. So that's something else that we'll have to keep an eye on here as we get into the end of the week. Financials, they were a bit weaker yesterday, but they held their support. They're at the 200. You can see the topping tail on the breakout there. So there's a lot to watch as we wait for something of more significance to do. So that's where we're at with that. And really not much more to go on here with the markets, because everything looks pretty much like the same stuff across the board, where there's some weakness, you know, even if it's a stall in momentum that really didn't do much. There's semiconductors, which have been doing fantastic. You know, down day, a gap down, not a narrow range or big deal. But we'll see where this closes at the end of the week. If we've got a red bar after a run like that, and then that made new all-time highs. If you're not aware, new all-time highs here in semiconductors. And so we'll see if that closes like that, which would support at least a short-term move to the downside, still in an uptrend here. So we shall see. Aerospace has been doing quite well, but, you know, same story, no matter where we look. And we'll see how much of it follows through. So, and that's it for me, Dan. The only other thing I could help with anybody to point out is, you know, watching bonds, that these yield curves are getting ominously close in the shorter ones to an inversion. So I know the market went little bananas with that correction at the end of last year, worries about this, which never happened. So, but we'll keep an eye on that. We'll let everybody know when and if it does happen. All yours, Dan.
until the next Tuesday.
All right, thanks. Good morning, everyone. As always, let's look at our opens. Yeah, so this tandem, we haven't held over earnings in a long time, but I said yesterday the chart, and of course gappers are it's kind of a coin toss, but at least the pattern supported higher prices. Beautiful engulfing buy setup. We're short the 51 calls though, so we've capped our gains, but I have zero regrets for that. We booked $14 through our covered call campaign. Qs, we got a call spread. I moved the stop. Yeah, let me show you what we did on the Qs. I sent it to the Telegram folks. INCY covered call looks fine. J&J covered call. MJ, we did that video on pot stocks and they're gapping up again here. So we entered 2 of them from our joint green room scanning. And remember GWPH was one of them, but it had earnings. That was a beautiful close also. I said in the video to go to 160, 170, and it's right there now on earnings. So nothing to do with it now, unfortunately. Except we'll play the others. VLRS for long stock, we sold 1/3 into strength on the climactic hourly. IYT call spread for March. Apple covered call. AGN never triggered, but it's still valid if it takes out last week's low. GDOT, we're short stock, and I covered 1/3 into weakness yesterday. Zen never, it gapped over the entry and didn't take out the 5-minute high, so I said let's hold off, but I'm still going to keep an eye on it. And we entered yesterday ACB with this, beautiful kind of retest right here on support in the 200, and Tagatif. We entered at 305 right into the close that hit. There's a few others we're watching. I'll come back to that later. EXAS, we have a covered call, and we're also looking for a short put for a week from Friday. And Guild, we have a bear put debit spread gapping down a little bit, so it under yesterday's low. Looks like an ad, and it's right there. I mean, don't do it in the first 5 minutes, but if it can't bounce, 30-minute low ideally, that would be a great ad. Let's look at earnings now. TJX, kind of sloppy pre-market, but the deeper it can get into this last week's resistance, I put that in a window here on my upper right here. We'll keep an eye on that as a whatever, directional, day trade, swing, put spread. But Ladon, step 2 is we got to wait for a compelling setup. Plant 61.15. It's gapping right into this bar, but look at that upside shakeout. Now we have a downside shakeout. That's some crazy moves. Sierra Echo 1840. That's a big old gap to all-time highs, but no entry. Arna fairly flat, slopping around here. I don't know what to do with that. CGC, this is one I like in the pot sector. Cron looks good. Nice engulfing bars on this prior support. This one I like. Little buy setup here, 50% into this wide range bar. And write that one down over here. ITHUF. ENTG, it's extended, gapping down. It's not a tier 1. We've looked at that one. VSM, 48.70, big old gap to all-time highs, but we don't, you know, we more look to fade gaps. I wish this closed at the high though, not with a topping tail. And pre-market here, it's holding strong, so I don't know what to do with that. Gevo, little penny stock toy, 314. It's whipping around pre-market, but that could, here, I'll put him in this window here. It could set up, we'll see. Whiskey Bravo, we've been watching this one for a couple weeks now. I like the big old W bottom on the weekly with the bottoming tail. I'm gonna put that in a window. And I think earnings were this morning. We'll have to double check. I've had so many conflicting dates on him because it's a Chinese stock. 109. Gevo, even with the weekly pattern. Did I miss something? Yeah, let's look. All right, here's LOW, bullish gap, but no setup. Gevo. You know what? I'm paying zero attention to the weekly and monthly. I mean, look at the monthly here. There's no pattern. It's been in a coma. So only if it sets up on the daily in a clean 15-minute, and we'll see if it sets up. IONS 6250. That was a bullish, you know, bullish bar daily, weekly. I'll put that in my minder. Trader, maybe sell low puts. It's gapping too much. I don't sell puts that are excessive far from the 20. Look at the 20 is $100. So it's $10, 10% away from the, it just is not my bag. CPB, gapping up, but it's garbage. Maybe CPB with earnings turns into a condor. Resistance overhead. We have two tests here. We're kind of negating these green bars. Let's watch that as a condor. And again, with earnings, volatility is higher. So in the first half hour is the time to do it. AMT 177, that's a mess. We'll come back to it. AMRN. I like this 1, 2, 3, 4. 2010. I think that had earnings. I'm going to put that in my minder. That looks good. Mylan gapping down, 27.8. Woo, that's a big gap. Wow, we'll have to watch it. EOG gapping in 92.70. It's a mess. ARNA is a mess. ACAD 23.25. If it still can go sideways for a couple more days, then it's still holding well. Daily, weekly, monthly are still fine, even with the small little gap down. Pizza, and that's funny. The journal says they missed earnings, all kind of bad news, and it's gapping up a little bit. Toll, nothing, it's a mess. Will I Am getting clocked, $25, way down here. So it's gapping under this bullish green bar. That is a short watch, either on a, you know, intraday sell setup or 30-minute low. I'll put that in my window. SE, we already looked at. Pan W. Oh, look at that retracement. Just incredible. Gapping to all-time highs right now. Nothing to do with it though. Rio 59.50. Nothing to do with it. But also a little breakdown failure and broke out here at $52. That was a nice run. There's our tandem. Whoa, tandem just popped again here. Gevo, we talked about. BBY 67.43. The gap's too excessive, but again, just for education, let's say it gapped up to 62. The weekly has a void, 65 to 70. So I'd be all over that, but right now it's too excessive. Weight Watchers just getting its clock clean. Remember, we shorted it here as a swing on this breakdown right here on February 6th. That is just pain. I like watching those and just see how they set up. Let me put it in a window for the fun of it because their puts are going to explode. This thing's gapping down, nothing to do. Trader Alta News, 308. I don't see much. I don't know. There's nothing jumping out at me right now, but you can come back to it. IJR, we shorted this yesterday and into the close. Allison this is a carryover now from yesterday. Roku, bullish. So these are carryover watches. Look at Garmin holding like a beast. Zulu Sierra. I have an alarm set, but that's going to be a beautiful buyout. I mean, breakout, that looks great. Echo Alpha looks good. I like that. That's beautiful, actually. So we have actually a pretty big list here. Mink, nah, I don't like the big old topping tail. AYX broke out, but I'll keep it on the list. THC, nah, I got sloppy. AYX, we just looked at. DDS, nah, gap's too big. Ugly. Amazon, we know about. Amazon's down now, so if Ladon's in the house, see, the contour looks fine. You just want that melting ice cube now. Waters, I still want to watch. Bullish all time frames. RCII was earnings. It's gapping down now, so I'm just going to delete them. Paul asked me about a couple of trades via email. I see the IWM making a new low pre-market. Q's weakening. Hey, that's actually a bear island reversal now. If it didn't have all that support, that's a shock pattern. Island reversals are shocks. But there's no great trade here because of this. Let's look at Paul asked me about Whiskey Papa. It's a bullish gap, too excessive. Intraday's a mess. EEFT. It's strong, but I mean, where's your entry and stop? You really have to give it a stop way the heck under here, under 128. So it's not a tier one. Well, maybe 30-minute high, yes. If the market's holding EPAM, I mean, that's a churning uptrend. You're getting on board a moving stock, but it's strong. So you can do a put spread on that too, sure. You can report back to me if go through your checklist.